for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And get us on with you. Okay, welcome everybody to the Kerry.
Sign that for me, Richard.
Can you hear me back there?
Yeah.
Good, okay. I'd like to welcome everyone and begin by thanking our sponsors, Judge Ken Pollack, Judge Michael Villani, Judge William Kephart, Judge Frank Sullivan, Judge Nancy Elf, Judge David Gibson Sr., and Trustee Linda Young for sponsoring this event. Right now, let's turn to the invocation. That'll be presented by George Chahadi. George?
Let's stand again, please.
Let's bow our heads in prayer. Father God, I'm so glad, we are so glad that we are a nation that has the freedom to bow our heads and look to you as our great Creator and our Father in heaven. We also bow our heads in reverence to the many, many men and women that are serving our country, that are being put in harm's way, dying and giving their lives so that we could have these freedoms. And for those that have served and that are serving, we ask that you bless them, watch over them, and keep them safe. We ask that you bless today's proceedings, the interviews. We ask that you'd put the proper men and women in place to be judges. We pray that you'd bless the judges and give them wisdom as they rule over cases and make their decisions. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, George. I think before we get started, I've been given the liberty of saying a few words. And now that I'm off the bench and no longer an active judge, I'm free to speak my mind. For some reason,
That's what you're all going to give up.
the ACLU and certain groups think that once you become a judge, you give up your First Amendment rights. So one of the privileges of no longer being a judge is I can speak to certain issues. Actually, Minnesota versus White says you can't speak, so that's something I would like to see litigated in the future. When judges are asked questions, I think they should be free to answer freely, with the caveat that they will follow the law and the Constitution especially, and that once an issue comes before them, however, they will be fair and objective and open-minded to the issue and follow the law, even if they disagree with it personally. I think with that caveat, judges should be able to answer controversial issues that may arise and questions that may be presented to them from time to time. One of my little pet peeves is the Second Amendment. I'd just like to remind everybody, it's only one line: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As we sit here today, our president is trying to gather a treaty in the United Nations to limit the right to bear arms. He's trying to circumvent our country by doing it internationally and by way of an international treaty, which will basically allow him to restrict the right to bear arms. So that's something we need to be aware of, and maybe let your representatives know all about that. So not only is the Second Amendment under assault, we've seen in years prior the First Amendment, our rights of freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and gather and demonstrate, whether you're a Christian or not, around Christmas time, in public places. The ability for people of Christian faith to demonstrate that has been severely under attack by the ACLU and other groups as well. So with my little speech out of the way now, let's begin. I'd like to start with having the candidates introduce themselves. We can start right here and work down the line.
And before we start there, a brief notice on time. This is one of the few times that I actually get to tell the judge to pipe it down instead. But you'll have, for most things, 1 minute to respond in. I'll give you a beep or a cling or something at about 50 seconds or a wind-up signal. Some of the times, either on my own for smaller amounts or the direction of the moderator, we may extend some time just because of what's going on. Also, if something directly impacts you, I'll probably, without even asking the moderator, give you about 30 seconds to respond to something. With that said, and we try to mix up which direction things are going. Start by the moderator this time. You each get 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. My name is Mike Mills. I'm an attorney in Las Vegas.
Mike, would you
Please
take
use
that
the
mic?
microphone, make sure it's on.
Happily.
Make sure it's on.
There. Does that work?
Yeah.
My name is Mike Mills. I'm an attorney in Las Vegas. I've practiced law here for 25 years. I've had my own law practice for 15 years. I have been an attorney for almost 30 years. I began my career in the United States Army. I was a JAG with the U.S. Army assigned to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, where I worked in the Trial Defense Service. That was mostly, obviously, it was courts-martial that I handled while I was there. After getting off of active duty, I continued to serve in the reserves and in the National Guard, completing 22 years of service and retiring as a lieutenant colonel. My practice here in town involves a lot of defense. It involves a lot of civil cases, and I am also a judge pro tempore in the 8th Judicial District Court. So thank you.
Good afternoon.
It's on. Turn it on. You have to hold it right up to your mouth.
Good afternoon. My name is Marsha Kimble-Simms. I have over 26 years of experience. I am licensed in California as well as our state. I've practiced civil litigation as well as defense law, personal injury, criminal defense, and currently I'm a member of the Indigent Defense Panel. I also was in the United States Army Reserve. I only did 6 years. I worked out of the 109th Judge Advocate Unit in Michigan. The thing that I want to tell you is that I've been active in this community, and veterans will have my support. I come from a strong military family, all the way from my uncles and aunts and to my brother who recently passed away, basically because of issues that impact veterans. So I'm very, very sympathetic to things that happen to veterans, and I would like for you to seriously consider me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sunny Bailey. I'm a 16-year practicing attorney, 10 years in criminal practice as both a deputy prosecuting attorney and a deputy, public defender. The last 6 years I spent in civil litigation. I'm also a judge pro tem here for the 8th Judicial Court for both Justice Court, and I was just named on the alternate panel for the city of Las Vegas. I have over 2,000 hours as a pro tem already on the bench, presiding over both civil and criminal matters. My husband and I we just celebrated our 17-year anniversary, and we have 2 teenage daughters. So judging actually seems much easier than that. Also, in my spare time, I am the co-author of the Nevada Courtroom Handbook on Evidence, published by Westlaw. It is in its 7th edition, and actually it's been well received by our colleagues. Thank you very much.
My name is Kerry Louise Earley. I just had the honor of being appointed to the judge position in Department 4, which is what everybody on this ballot here is running for. I was given that honor by Governor Sandoval after I went through the Nevada Judicial Selection Committee, which had 22 people. I then was sent up with the top 3 people, and after an interview with Governor Sandoval, I was selected. I have been a lawyer 30 years. I started and have always stayed in civil litigation. I started out doing complex civil litigation, and I don't know how many of you remember the MGM fire litigation, but that's the case I started on. I also was involved in the PEPCON litigation. I had started with a major firm, became a partner, started my own firm in January of 1993, doing complex type cases, catastrophic injury, that type of thing. I've had my practice base in trial. I'm married. My husband is the Chief Deputy District Attorney, Thomas Morio, who does sexual assault cases, and he is a veteran, as is my father.
Hi, my name is this on? Okay. Hi, my name is Troy Peyton. I have been practicing as an attorney in Nevada for 27 years. In all that time, I've been practicing in civil practice. Since 1994, I've had my own law firm, and I am a pro tem judge. I preside over short trials, which are jury trials. in and of themselves. I'm also a member of the State Bar Fee Dispute Committee, where I act as an arbitrator. I've been an arbitrator, mediator for close to 20 years now. I guess I'm married. I have a son who is he's going to be a junior at A-Tech, and just like I said, this is new to me. This is the first time that I've run, so I guess I haven't even used all my time yet, so that shows me.
Well, you got 2 seconds.
Perfect timing.
You have 1 minute to introduce yourself. Oh, go ahead, you got the mic.
Well, we can go back to Mr. Lincoln. Hi, my name is Bob Kelley. I've been an attorney in Las Vegas for 31 years. I've been in Las Vegas as a resident for 50 years. I've been practicing law for 31. During that 31 years, I've been a small claims referee, a judge pro tem in justice court, a judge pro tem in district court. I do short trial programs, and for the last 5.5 years or so, I've been the Clark County traffic court judge. I was asked a question here recently about whether or not I had any criminal experience in my practice. My answer, I guess quite flippantly, was no. I started to think about what I do for a living at present, though, as the traffic court judge. All traffic cases in the state of Nevada are criminal cases. They're misdemeanors. So I guess for the last 5.5 years, I have been running a very busy and very active criminal court. I have served 3 years in the military. I received the honorable discharge, and I guess like everyone else on the panel, I'm married with children. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Judge Chris Lee from North Las Vegas Justice Court Department 3. Sorry about being held up. I apologize. My air conditioning man took a little bit longer than you thought. I've been on the bench for about going on 4 years now. Before that, I was 7 years with the Clark County DA's office, and then 2 years as the Deputy Secretary of State here in Nevada. I currently handle a full civil and criminal caseload. We also handle post-foreclosure eviction cases, and you can imagine the zip codes in the jurisdiction that I'm in are the epicenter of not just the state, but the entire country. And so we've had quite a lot of experience in dealing with those types of issues. I'm happily married. Hopefully my wife will say the same thing. We have 2 small kids, and I have 2 years left on my term. And the reason I'm running for Clark County District Court is because I've just really wanted to do my best to serve my community, my country. I'm also an officer in the United States Air Force Reserve. Thank you very much.
You know, in 10 years I was on the bench, I never used the gavel. First time I've had to use the gavel. All right. I would like to personally thank this organization for inviting me to moderate this. It's an honor and a privilege. I come from a long line of military folks, and we cannot thank our men and women in the military enough for the great service that they perform. They owe us, we owe them a great debt of gratitude that we can never begin to repay as citizens. Our Constitution and our way of life depends on the men and women who serve and have served before us. And with that, I would like to ask anyone that has served or is serving to please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. And I'd also like to recognize 2 of my favorite judges. Judge Mosley just walked in, and Judge Tim Williams. Please stand and be recognized. And now I would like to introduce the panel members that will be asking questions. Nick Starling, Army Ranger and CEO for Veterans in Politics. Karen Steelman, Veterans in Politics, Auxiliary Director. Melody Howard, U.S. Army and President of Veterans in Politics of Nevada. Gary Lesperance, United States Marine Corps, Army and President of Veterans in Politics in Michigan. Wayne Klesmer, United States Navy, Congressional District 3 Director for Veterans in Politics. Jason Brooks, United States Marines.
You're up.
Douglas Webster, U.S. Marine Corps, former law enforcement officer. Teresa Price, retired Major, United States Air Force. My aunt just retired 25 years in the Air Force too, so thank you for your service. Michael Yepko, private investigator and owner of Las Vegas Legal Support Services. William Brown, attorney. Is he here? Not here? Okay. Travis Barrick, I know he's here. Dr. Richard Hawkins, attorney. Rowena Richards, co-founder of the Shine Family Foundation. Andre Haynes, founder of Never Media Group. Okay, with that, I think we can begin. Okay, turn it over to the panel. Who would like to start? Do you want to
Travis, go for it.
Sure.
right down the road there?
Let's start
and
at
then over
this
here?
end. Microphone. Mike. Need your mic. Thank you.
And pay attention, because I'll cut off questions in a minute
Thank
too.
you.
By the way, panel members, you'll have 1 minute to answer.
Very quickly, same question for all the panel members. Do you know about U.S. vets? Have you ever been there? And tell us what you know about the Veterans Specialty Calendar.
The veteran, are we talking about the Veterans Court?
Yes, Veterans
Well, we wish it was a court, don't we? We'll accept a calendar. We'll take a calendar for starters.
All right, I am not familiar with the calendar. Is that better? I'm not familiar with the calendar, I've never seen the calendar. I was asked a question a couple weeks ago about the Veterans Court, and I wasn't familiar with it then, and I actually tried to do some research to try to find out what the Veterans Court is. It's my understanding that there is a Veterans Court in Reno that came into place in 2009. I have read the enabling legislation, it's AB 187, that talks about the need for a Veterans Court, the duty that's owed to our veterans by the country. And I think it would do a lot of good if we had a court in this county that could address some of the unique issues that are raised by veterans. I've already run out of time, so I'm going to pass the microphone.
Before you go, have you ever been to U.S. Vets? Do you know what it is, or have you ever been there?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
Same thing, I do not know what that is, I've never been there. Same thing, I know very little about the Veterans Court, the Veterans Calendar, aside from just generally what I've read in some newspaper articles and something to that effect, although I think the idea in general, it is a great idea. It's something that sure needs to be done, and I'm certainly for anything as far as that we owe an incredible debt to our veterans.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with U.S. Vets. I've worked with them very closely in having our court, the North Las Vegas Justice Court, participate in the Veterans Stand Down that they're very heavily involved with every year. I've visited their facilities many times, their main housing facility over on Bonanza, as well as their new apartment that got converted over for veterans over off of Sahara as well. Shalimar, the director, and I work very closely in referring people over to the specialty calendar. I personally have veterans in my court, and I set them aside as well. But the first thing I always ask them is where is it more convenient for you to go? Because I know that Judge Tobias in downtown has a veterans court as well, and oftentimes it's just much more convenient for them to go down there. But Shalimar over at US Vets and I have worked really closely in providing whatever resources we can for veterans. That's just the other thing that I do. As an officer in the JAG Corps over at the Nellis Air Force Base, I work with vets all the time with bringing wills and everything. All right, thank you.
Has to be on. I am very familiar with the Veterans Court in the 8th Judicial District Court, which is the court that I'm going to take the bench in just a few weeks. I have talked to Chief Justice Judge Jennifer Tagliotti about it. Kathy Delaney did have it. Judge Delaney had it. They are working on getting it up and running, and I understand your frustration. They realize that it has to get going, and there has to be an identification process so that the vets, and I know you're going to agree, that's the main thing, is we have to identify these vets as soon as they get into the system, because we can't have each individual judge trying to ask the question. They have to be identified once they hit the system. And once we identify them, we then have to have like a case manager in the 8th Judicial District Court or some type of mechanism to use them. So I'm aware of Tobiason is also doing it in Justice Court, but then if it gets up to the 8th Judicial District Court, it falls apart if we don't have a mechanism. So we are working on it and aware of it.
For the edification of the judges, it doesn't cost any money. For every 5 veterans that go through it, it pays for the court for 3 years. 1. 2, the VA provides the justice coordinator, so you don't have to worry about it at all.
We just need the mechanism.
I'm also very familiar with Veterans Court. When I was a deputy public defender, we did not have the privilege of having something to send people to. We had to identify the veterans ourselves by asking them questions, and then we had to address each and every one of their issues. It could be mental health, PTSD, or depression or anything else. It could also be the substance abuse that so commonly is associated with some of those other disorders. And then we had to find the mechanism in order to treat them ourselves. Fortunately, we had social workers who would go out and help us get people into the VA hospitals. I'm very happy to hear that the courts are trying to ease that process by having an actual court devoted to that. I'm also aware, having spoken with my friends who are prosecutors in Henderson, that there is a veterans court there that is working very well, and they just had the second graduating class on Thursday. So hopefully we'll be able to take some cues from there and actually get them implemented on the felony level where they're so desperately needed. Thank you.
Yes, I am also aware of the Veterans Court, but there was a meeting about 2 weeks ago with Shelley Berkeley's office and a lot of the congressional leaders. One of the issues that they proposed was putting some type of identifying marker on the driver's license that would indicate that you were a veteran, and that would cut down a lot of the issues in reference to determining who's a veteran, who's not a veteran. It would easily transition veterans into the court system. So I'm very well aware of it. I've spoken with our legislative leaders. Being a veteran and coming from a veteran family, I'm also very aware of the post-traumatic stress syndrome. I've spent a lot of time volunteering at the office on Owens, taking friends or relatives to the apartments that are on Bonanza. So those issues are very keen to veterans in general. Thank you.
Mr. Barrick, I am familiar with U.S. Vets. The church that I attend rehabbed a number of the apartments that were acquired at the Shalimar location. We were responsible for painting all of the apartments and also furnishing those apartments, and I was intimately involved with that. I've been over to that facility. I participated in that, and we also had lunch with the vets after we had gotten many of those apartments rehabbed, so we had the chance to meet each one of the occupants and to give them our thanks for their service. Thank you.
Major.
My first question is for Ms. Bailey. I looked for your information online, and I found that your posting of your contributions, expense reports, and financial disclosure statements was very helpful. I wish that everybody could do that. My question is, what say you on the proposal for Metro to wear cameras on their uniforms?
I'm aware there are several issues that the officers are addressing on that. I think that there's...
Hold the microphone, please.
Sorry. I think that there's a benefit to that. Obviously, during civil litigation, cameras on vehicles have been indispensable in solving so many disputes without there needing to be litigation. I think it would save a lot of officers. With that said, there's also the issue with making sure that there isn't an intrusion into their private rights. I'm not sure how that balance would be stricken. I believe that would be something that would have to work with the unions and everything. I think there's a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be analyzed. I see a lot of benefit for the officers with those cameras, just like the ones on the vehicles.
My next question is for Mr. Kelley. Let's see. I see that NPR did some interviews in the city of Las Vegas and Clark County will need some $68 million more to keep police on the job. With Clark County Commissioner Steve Sisolak having told Metro there is no more money, so what will happen in your view? And more revenue collected or fewer cops on the streets? Because right now polls in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, indicate that we should go with the fewer cops. What say you?
I'm not familiar with the polls. Is that just people being asked on the street if they need more police officers on the
That
street?
it has to do with the interview or the series that they're covering, and you can find it online. At the bottom, you'll see comments where they're taking surveys and collecting data from or more opinions rather from other people as to what should be done.
Well, if the police are asking for another $68 million to fund their current operations, I wouldn't agree with that, I guess. I think the current level of funding is probably sufficient, unless there's some specific ideas that are going to be floated as to what any additional funds are going to go to. I mentioned, was made a minute ago, about cameras on uniform. I mean, if there's a specific amount of money that's going to be directed in that area, sure, that's something that can be considered. But if it's just, we need another $68 million to build another building or to upgrade our squad cars or some kind of general areas like that, I wouldn't agree that that would be necessary.
Thank you. My next question is for Ms. Kimble-Simms. Thank you for posting your bio online and for your service in the reserve. Your video online was helpful introduction. And with your background in defense, what say you on public safety with regards to the quality of our Clark County education system, considering the high school dropout rates are nearly 43%?
I want to clarify your question. Your question is in reference to high school dropouts and defending persons, is that correct?
Yes, typically with higher dropout rates and poor quality education system, we're not turning out sort of model citizens into the community.
I disagree with that comment, and this is one of the reasons that I disagree with that. For years, our school system has served as a feeder system into the gaming industry. And a lot of those people have very good jobs. I have family members that have been here that are car dealers or they work in the gaming industry, and they've made significant contributions. So I disagree with that. However, I have worked with, being a part of the Indigent Defense Panel for 7 years, I have worked with foster children who end up more in the system than high school dropouts. Foster kids make up more of issue with that instead of people who don't graduate from high school.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just a quick note, when we're asking different questions to different panelists, I'm just starting the clock on the minute, including the question.
My next question is for Judge Lee. Thanks for your service in the reserve. What say you on the disparity of conditions between the North Las Vegas and Clark County detention centers? And specifically, if you've visited them, are you inclined to know the procedures or lack thereof for inmates to gain access to the courts, even when via an attorney?
I have. It was one of the first things I did. As 7 years as a prosecutor, I visited Clark County Detention Center many times. As soon as I got on the bench, one of the first things I did within the first couple of weeks was go down to the North Las Vegas Detention Center and have a walkthrough there as well. You know, this is a very timely question because there no longer is a North Las Vegas Detention Center anymore. But I think the point of your question is access for people, family members, and attorneys to go see the inmates. And it was difficult, much more difficult at the North Las Vegas Detention Center than it was at Clark County. And it is an issue now, but I'm glad that it no longer is an issue.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. Mills. Thank you for your service in the Army. I see your firm specializes in insurance laws. What say you on the possibility of Metro purchasing liability insurance to protect taxpayers from the ever-growing lawsuits resulting from their misconduct? Specifically, $6.5 million from 2008 to 2011 and another $5 million on tap for 2012.
I do believe that insurance is a good way to spread risks. The issue is, though, that generally the big verdicts against Metro are usually the civil rights violations. That's where we get hit. If it's just a negligence case where someone inadvertently strikes another vehicle, I know that there is a certain amount of self-insurance in place, and there is a certain amount of insurance for that right now. The ones that are probably the most problematic are the ones relative to the civil rights. And I don't know about insurance on that. I've never looked into that.
Thank you. My next question is for Judge, sorry if I get it wrong, Earley?
Earley.
Earley, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for posting your CV online. And I see you have some experience in complex personal injury cases.
I do.
Are you willing to discuss any of these with regards to Metro's excessive use of force? And if not, what say you on the Stanley Gibson case? More importantly, what say you on the Ninth Circuit Court and their history of upholding qualified immunity for Metro's misconduct?
Well, it's kind of got three questions. The Stanley Gibson case is obviously the most tragic case. There was many, I have found in catastrophic cases, it's not just one thing that happens, it's a cascade of things that happen. It wasn't just that there was a fire in the deli, it was that we did not have anybody in there with sprinklers or 24 hours. It was, we had holes in the stairwell, so I have learned that, same with PepCon, you don't want to hear about ammonium perchlorate, but it wasn't just one thing that made it go off at the PepCon. As far as the Stanley Gibson case, everybody failed him. He didn't get the proper treatment he needed. The veterans, they cut his benefits. And then the deadly force, I will tell you the new deadly force policy is a start. I was thrilled to read about it. I understand, I understand it's not the complete answer, but it's a start. And I was very pleased, and I hope everybody else was pleased that at least we got a dialogue going and something being addressed.
Thank you. Next is for Mr. Peyton.
Oh, you got one left? Oh, you do have one left. The extra, yeah, okay.
Mr. Peyton, thank you for posting your CV online. I didn't really find much more public information about you, but I did notice your involvement with the Chamber of Commerce. Thereby, can you tell us why you would be a good judge, rather, for the community, and specifically how you would address the concerns of the average citizen in our bankrupt North Las Vegas community? I'd like to know how you as a judge could influence the bureaucracy in Carson City to rethink the criteria used in allocation of CT, or consolidated taxes.
Got 30
Well,
seconds.
As a district court judge, I don't think is this on? Well, I didn't know. Am I on now? Okay, as a district court judge, I'm not sure that there would be a lot that I could do as far as influencing Carson City, but one thing that I can tell you as far as the persons that would come before me, whether it would be from North Las Vegas, powerful, weak, rich, poor, whatever demographic, as I would pledge to them, they would all get the same fair, professional, courteous treatment, that I would be prepared when they heard the case, I would not unduly delay anything, and that I would apply the law as best that I could.
Thank you.
And I can talk really fast, so I think that's
great. Last question for Mr. Davidson. I see that you have...
He's not here.
Oh, sorry. Who did I miss? Who did I miss? No, I got him.
I think you got everybody.
You got
Thanks,
us
everybody.
all.
All right.
Very well prepared.
Good afternoon, thank you for attending. My question is for all of you, and basically it is, Judge Earley went through, and I'm sure a couple of others went through a very lengthy process in order to get elected or chosen by Governor Sandoval as our current judge. However, what I would like to know is what makes you uniquely qualified in that regard, and would you fill out the same applications that each of them had previously sent out and posted on your website? My question for Judge Earley basically is going to be, are you aware of the fact that our current law regarding the Veterans Court requires every judge to ask every defendant that comes before them whether or not they're a veteran? So I guess I'll start with you, Judge Earley, and then we'll move on to Soonhee, Bailey, and go that way and around. Thank you.
I have read the law, and I am aware that they need to be identified. I do know that it is not necessarily being done in every courtroom, that we don't have consistency yet. That's why I love the idea of the driver's license. As soon as we can identify them, I truly believe that will be the mechanism, once they enter the system, that'll make it different. I did go through the process and got appointed. If you're asking me how I feel like I am separated from the other people, why I am more qualified, I think that was one of your questions, if I'm
Well, it's
correct.
actually for them, the rest.
Oh,
You're
okay.
already appointed, so.
All right, but I have to get elected, Melody, so I also want them to know I'm qualified. I have 30 years experience, I'm Navy rated, I'm in top 100 trial lawyers. I have in a civil litigation department. I have the ability for complex litigations, and was approached by several judges to be appointed to get into this process because I have unique abilities that they need in the district court. So I did want to at least add that because I got to get elected. I don't want to be a judge for 5 months.
Thank you. And my answer to that question would be what I believe I offer to the bench is balance. I have experience in both criminal as both a prosecutor and public defender, which gives you a very unique perspective of the criminal justice system. Not only that, I serve as a judge pro tem. I have actually presided already over civil and criminal litigation, and I have done that over 2 different states. I presided over jury trials. I've also taken part in numerous jury trials and bench trials. I also have been involved in civil litigation, so I have the familiarity with that system as well. With this being a split court, we need someone who is familiar with both civil and criminal.
It's not a split
Oh, now it's no
court.
longer a split court.
It is not a split court. In fact, Chief Justice.
Did they change that?
Yes,
They just changed it.
They want, it is not, it is actually.
Is it all criminal or civil?
No,
Civil.
all
Civil,
civil.
it's civil.
But it is civil then, and I also have the experience in that, as well as the hours in court to be a good jurist. I have already presided and proven myself, as well as I'm the evidence author, as well, and it's in the 7th edition. And to your question in regards to my application.
You're out of time.
Oh, is that what you're
You can add it to YouTube.
I apologize. If I took her time, she can have part of my next time, okay?
And actually, I brought my application if anyone wants it.
Yeah, Marsha, you're next.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure they were finished. I have 26 years of legal experience in California as well as here. I have done personal injury cases. I have not litigated complex litigation matters, but I am quite familiar with them. I've attended many conferences. The issue for me is having someone who has the experience to handle what comes before you. Even if it appears to be complicated, it basically is, to me, a simple matter. You do the research. If you need extra guidance, you have law clerks and people that will help you. But I do have 26 years of experience. I've done personal injury litigation. I have over 45 trials. I've done bench trials. I've done felony trials. So I have the requisite experience to handle whatever issues are presented to me in court in a fair and balanced manner.
I have worked as a prosecutor and a defender in civil cases. I have represented plaintiffs and in criminal cases. I've represented plaintiffs and defendants in criminal cases. I have tried cases before the 8th Judicial District Court. I've tried cases in the Justice Court. I have appeared as a party in the Small Claims Court, and I've also presided at the Traffic Court, just like Mr. Kelley at the end. I presided over 18 civil trials that were short trials, some of them jury cases, some of them not. I have also handled and administered my own law office for 15 years. Judges have to be administrators, and I've done that as well. I've written, I've been published in the Nevada Lawyer, I've been published online in some of the newsletters online in insurance issues. I have also appeared before the Nevada Supreme Court and the U.S. District Court for the state of Nevada and tried and appeared, argued in front of the Supreme Court and tried cases in front of all of those. Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, for 31 years, I've been practicing law in the state of Nevada. For the first 25, I was a sole practitioner. I had my own law firm. I guess like Mr. Mills, you become somewhat of a jack of all trades when you have your own firm. At the same time you're trying cases, you're also running a business. And so you learn how to do those things. The litigation that I handled during the time that I was an attorney, I was regional counsel for the Agent Orange litigation. If any of you are familiar with that Agent Orange litigation, that was probably some of the most complex litigation I think has ever taken place in the country. I finished a civil case not too long ago that took 10 years from the time that the complaint was filed until the Supreme Court finally issued its final decision on the case. I've been the traffic court judge for the last 5 years, and so I've learned how to handle a very busy courtroom. So my time is up, and so I'm going to pass my microphone. Thank you.
I've been practicing for 27 years, almost exclusively in civil litigation. I've served as an arbitrator, a mediator, as I said, I've been a short trial judge where I presided over jury trials. I'm an alternate municipal court judge for the city of Las Vegas. In addition to that, I have a very active trial practice. Since the day after President's Day this year, I've tried 5 jury trials. One was a one-day short trial, but the rest of them were at least a week. The last one was 2.5 weeks. So I've seen this from both sides. I've seen it from the bench as well as from the side of the litigant. As far as the application, I have an application. I believe it's online because the state bar is, or rather the Supreme Court is publishing the applications for this Department 4 when it was going through the application process. Mine is online. That's about as extensive of a biography as you're going to see. With your website or the Supreme Court? Through the Supreme Court.
Thank you. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified because, quite frankly, I'm the only one who's been doing it. I got elected 4 years ago. I've been carrying a full civil and criminal calendar since then. Quite frankly, the only elected official up here, and I don't mean that as a boastful manner, but if it wasn't for the election process, you folks sitting right here wouldn't have a say in who's going to be your next judge. I don't believe any of you had a seat at the appointment process, and so I'm glad, no matter how you feel about appointment or electing judges, that we have this forum here where you can have a say in who's going to be your next judge. And that's right where it's at right now, is that I feel like I've been completely vetted because of that process. Not only does the RJ do their judging the judges survey every 2 years, I think I've had it done 2 or 3 times by now, but you see, I'm a known commodity. You know what you're going to get on the bench, and if judicial demeanor means anything to you, you know what you're getting with me. So I appreciate the question and the time.
You're going, and the doctors, because I'm also an economics professor. Anyway, you're going to see and have heard a number of suggestions as to what the court should do differently, how this should be improved. What is the court doing right where it should resist that call right now, particularly in the local 8th district? That is, what calls for change should you be resisting that you're going to be facing on the court?
I'm not sure I understand. Can you clarify that?
Out of all the proposals to reform, okay, there's plenty of proposals around to reform the court, to change this, to change that. What are you going to see pressure to change that should not be changed, right? What calls should be told no on change facing the court, if any? Or does everything need to be changed?
Which end do you want to start at?
I don't think we've started that in yet.
This is the whole point of...
There's a couple of things I'd like to step in as CEO of Veterans of Politics International real quick. The whole reason why you all are up here so that you can see that we are being fair and impartial to all of you, all at the same time. That's why we're not interviewing you separately. Also, the reason why we ask you all the same question all at once is so that you all know that all of you get to answer the same question, because one of you might get a question that another one might have an add-on to. 3, I'm sorry. If you have additional comments past the minute, go ahead and tag it onto the YouTube. You can put it on your Facebook page, all of that, which helps us out with our marketing, which we appreciate. But and then the 4th component was it all comes down to initiative. So whoever wants to take the initiative can go ahead and do that.
I'd like to start because since I'm going to be sworn in the 8th Judicial District Court, I have great respect and I feel very honored to be part of the 8th Judicial District Court. I know they work very hard. I know that they have the highest caseload of almost any court in the United States. I know that we have no appellate court, as you know. We just go up to the Supreme Court. So the rulings are so important in district court and trial, so litigants can get justice there because it is so expensive to appeal only up to the Supreme Court. Obviously, an area we need to work on, and it's quite obvious, is Veterans Court. It's very obvious that needs to go now. It's too late. It should have gone yesterday. I think that is one area that obviously needs to happen, and I understand your frustration, and that is one area I would like to work on. Whether I get to do it or I keep my civil docket, that's fine, but that is one area I will certainly tell people needs improvement. I will tell you, they work very hard. We're courtroom sharing now. We have very limited time and space, and that has, and with all the problems we have as far as courtrooms and stuff, they're really striving to do an excellent job in the 8th Judicial District Court. Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Judge.
Thank you.
Next, a volunteer.
One of the things that was mentioned earlier is when you get on the bench, there is an aspect of administration, and one of the things that many of you may have seen recently reported in the newspaper has been this push to separate the 8th Judicial District from the Justice Court level. And what it has is a tremendous budgetary impact because there are potential for duplicative services that would result from that. So to answer your specific question of what type of changes that might not need to be implemented, if there's a way that we can streamline the court system as a whole, the regional justice system that includes the district court, the justice courts, and even drill down to the municipal courts, separating those, a change to separate all those and individualize them would be something that maybe shouldn't be implemented.
You know, I think one of them, sorry, no, okay, you set me up, all right. No, I think one of the strongest things that we have going in the 8th Judicial District Court is our ADR system, our Alternative Dispute Resolution system, and I would really be hesitant to see any changes made in that, certainly anything cutting that back. I think that's one of the things that we can do to cut down the time that it takes a case to get to court, the fact that we can maybe head off some problems or head off cases, get the cases headed towards settlement before they drag on in the court. And what I'd actually like to see is what they have, something similar to what they have in federal court with the early neutral evaluation, where cases not get called in for a settlement conference at the very beginning, as opposed to, you know, a week or a month before trial.
I believe the last time I checked, there was something like 3,000 cases for each sitting district court judge. I'd agree with Mr. Peyton that if anything we can do to shorten that process, move some of those cases into the ADR process, that's a good thing. I'm not familiar with what changes are being proposed that we should either be for or against. I'm just not familiar with what you're referring to. I know one of the changes that is taking place is the Justice Court and the District Court have split. That split's going to take place on August 3rd, and basically, as near as I can tell, the split is because of the problems we're having with the new Odyssey computer systems. It's gotten so, I guess, one-sided, I guess, from the Justice Court's position into the District Court that they just can no longer work together, so they're going to divide the two courts again. I don't know if that's going to be good, bad, or indifferent, but as of August 3rd, I guess we're all going to find out. Thank you.
Working is never an adjective I heard applied to that WisNet system and Odyssey.
And my understanding of the question is that we're going to focus on the positive.
Right, what's positive?
And I agree with Troy. I love the ADR system. I think it's wonderful. It streamlines the process. You get through it very quickly. With that being said, I also love settlement conferences where you get to take advantage of some senior judges to come in with their experience to help you settle the cases before trial. It's very advantageous to both sides. Sometimes the mediation process obviously helps as well. But to get someone in court and to be able to speak with these seasoned judges and hear a little bit of evaluation about their case, we've settled many cases that way. Also, I found the actual jury trial system of being able to get the jurors moved around, even with all the changes in the court system, has been highly effective. You still get a few jurors lost in the hallway. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but they always make it back to where they need to go. So I think that system is working very well, especially in light of all the difficulties with the system. Thank you.
If you're familiar with some of the issues, basically they have said that our court is the worst run court in the country, the district court, the 8th Judicial District. For me, they have a program called the Neighborhood Justice Center. If the judges could set up a committee where they could funnel more cases into mediation, because a lot of times cases are filed and sometimes they're kind of barely minimal, making the merits. If you could funnel those cases to the mediation division, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they do a lot of mediation. That would really cut down on the time that other more important cases like traumatic brain injury or cases involving officers, misconduct, those are more important issues. So if you can have a little time, look up the Neighborhood Justice Center. They do mediation. A lot of attorneys are involved in the mediation process. And for an example, I guess the predatory lending situation for mediation for houses has really cut down on a lot of litigation that goes to district court. We need the same thing. Thank you.
I agree that the thing that does work best is the ADR process. I think that if there were changes and opportunities to move those mediations earlier on, if those opportunities came around, I know that that system already exists. I just fear that, or feel that, the judges need to push that more. They need more to encourage the parties to get into mediation sooner rather than later. Generally, settlement conferences, which is the way that the judges twist the attorney's arms, and to get them there, the way to do that is to have a settlement conference, but generally judges won't do that early on. They let it lie, wait for discovery to be done, and that's where all the money gets spent, and that's where all the time and energy gets spent by the attorneys. I think if we did that earlier, sooner, that would benefit the program, and anything that would cut down on mediation would be a problem. Thank you.
Okay, Nick, if I can interrupt for 1 second before we give you the floor. We've been graced by the presence of one of my favorite justices, Christine Pickering from the Nevada Supreme Court. Thank you for being here. It shows you care. Nick?
All right. One of my favorite things about the state of Nevada is that they actually do elect judges here. I just got back from Hawaii where they are appointing, which to me that's a form of oligarchy. You know, there's a... Thanks, Tom. Either way. So, do you think that there should be some vanguard out there appointing judges, or do you believe that this should be an elected process?
I guess I made reference to it earlier. You know, having gotten on the bench through the election process, I certainly see all the benefits of having the election process, as I mentioned earlier, groups like this having a say. One of the things that I've learned actually having to campaign is that some of the criticisms that judges get is this thing called the black robe disease. If you're up on the bench for too long and no one ever tells you no, you get kind of an attitude after a while. But if you have to run, you have to go meet the people every 6 years. You got to go knock on the doors. You got to bring yourself back down, and for whatever you want to call it, humble yourself, or get back to why you became a judge. There's tremendous merits in electing a judge, and quite frankly, we've had it on the ballot at least 2 times, and the will of the people said no. We're going to elect our judges. We're not going to go with the appointment process. Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback on that. It was just in 2010, they even brought Sandra Day O'Connor over here to try to do what's it's called the Modified Missouri Plan. Nevadans want to elect their judges. That's been very clear. Part of the responsibility is that we have to educate the voters, because the last thing they're interested in, unfortunately, is a judicial race. I'm out there right now, and they look at me and will say, I was telling you earlier, one young man said, why would I vote for you? Why do I care who's a judge? I'll never be there. And I said, you know what? I pray you never in a car accident, that you have a brain injury, that you come to the 8th Judicial Court. I pray you're never discriminated against, but no one knows. That's a right we have. And I said, it's one of the most important races, but it is very difficult, and we have to, and groups like you, if you would help us, educate the public to understand a judicial race is as important as the national races. It has the same, if not more, impact on our community, and it puts a tough thing on the candidates. So we need to all get out and help us on that. Thank you.
I concur with Ms. Earley.
Yes, Ms.
I hear the same thing. People do not understand the significance of the judicial race. We actually decide your civil liberties. We take away your rights. That's something that's should be held very important and in high esteem. I've encountered the same issues. There's no connection between the average everyday person and what a judicial officer actually does. And groups like Veterans in Politics, I get messages from you on Facebook, but I never get a message saying your civil liberties. can be taken away by a judicial officer. A judicial race is very important to you. Just like the issue in reference to identifying veterans, that is an issue that is very important to you, but yet you don't have that yet. You should have that right, because veterans fought, people in my family fought for you to have the civil liberties that you have now. We went to war, so it's very important that we make the connection that it is very important. And thank you, I do concur with you.
There are pluses in voting for judges. There are positives about that, but there are also negatives, and one of those negatives came up in the Supreme Court this week. There was an argument in the Supreme Court relative to a case called, or involving Phil Ivey in the 8th Judicial District Court. The downside was that a judge who had ruled in a divorce got a campaign contribution from somebody who had been in that divorce, and then was later on asked to rule on whether or not the support should continue. So the argument then was, did the contribution of the lawyer and the party involve or somehow or another cause problems with the decision that got made? So there's a downside and a problem there, because what at least that person felt, the former Mrs. Ivey, she felt like it appeared bad that a decision was being made on her case. So we can't all say everything is hearts and roses on this side of it. There are issues. I'm not advocating for changing the